Manasutra and Meru, beginning from the middle of Mount Sumeru. Kavati, that much. Bhumi, land. Kanchani, made of gold. Anya, another. Adarsha Tala Upama, whose surface is just like the surface of a mirror. Yasyam, on which. Prahita, dropped. Padartha, a thing. Na, not. Katanchit, in any way. Punaha, again. Pratyupalabhyate, is found. Tasmad, therefore. Sarvasattva, by all living entities. Parihrita, abandoned. Asit, was. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Beyond the ocean of sweet water is a tract of land as broad as the area between the middle of Mount Sumeru and the boundary of Manasotra mountain. In that tract of land there are many living beings. Beyond it, extending the Lokaloka mountain, is another land, which is made of gold. Because of its golden surface, it reflects light like the surface of a mirror. And any physical article that falls on that land can never be perceived again. All living entities, therefore, have abandoned that golden land. Text 36. Loka loka iti samakya yad anina chalena loka lakasyantarvaratina vastapyate. Loka, with light or with inhabitants. Aloka, without light or without inhabitants. Iti, in this way. Samakya, designation. Yat, which. Anina, by this. Achalina, mountain. Loka, of the land of inhabited by living entities. Alokasya, and of the land not inhabited by living entities. Antarvartina, which is in the middle. Avastapyate, is established. Translation. Between the lands inhabited by living entities and those that are inhabited stands the great mountain which separates the two, and which is therefore celebrated as Loka Loka. Text 37. And then we'll stop there after the purport. Saloka trayante parita ishvarena vihito yasmat suryadinam dhruva pavarganam jyotirgananam gabhastayo arvachinam strilokan avitanvana nakadachit parachina bhavitum utsahante tavad unna hanyayama. Got it. Sa, that mountain, Lokatraya ante, at the end of the three lokas, Burloka, Bhuvarloka, and Svarloka. Paritaha, all around, Ishvarena, by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Krishna. Vihita, created, Yasmat, from which. Surya Adinam, of the sun planet. Dhruva Apavarganam, up to Dhruvaloka and other inferior luminaries. Jyoti Gananam, of all the luminaries. Gabhastaya, the rays. Arvachinan, on the side. Trin, the three. Lokan, planetary systems. Avitanvana, spreading throughout. Na, not. Kadachit, at any time. Parachina, beyond the jurisdiction of that mountain. Bhavitum, to be. Utsahante, are unable. Tavat, that much. Unnahana ayama, the measure of the height of the mountain. By the supreme will of Krishna, the mountain known as Lokaloka has been installed as the outer border of the three worlds, Bhuloka, Bhuvarloka, and Svarloka, to control the rays of the sun throughout the universe. All the luminaries from the sun up to Dhruvaloka distribute the rays throughout the three worlds, but only within the boundaries formed by this mountain. Because it is extremely high, extending even higher than Dhruvaloka, it blocks the rays of the luminaries, which therefore can never extend beyond it. Purport. When we speak of Lokatraya, we refer to the three primary planetary systems, Bhu, Bhuva, and Sva, into which the universe is divided. Surrounding these planetary systems are the 8 directions, namely east, west, north, south, northeast, southeast, northwest, and southwest. Loka mountain has been established as the outer boundary of all the lokas to distribute the rays of the sun and other luminaries equally throughout the universe. The vivid description of how the rays of the sun are distributed throughout the different planetary systems of the universe is very scientific. Shukadeva Goswami described this universal affair to Maharaj Parikshit as he had heard about them from their predecessors. He explained that these facts 5,000 years ago, but the knowledge existed long before Shukadeva Goswami received it through disciplic succession. Because this knowledge is accepted through the disciplic succession, it is perfect. The history of modern scientific knowledge, on the contrary, does not go back more than a few hundred years. Therefore, even if modern scientists do not accept the other factual presentations of Srimad Bhagavatam, how can they deny the perfect astronomical calculations that existed long before they could imagine such things? There is so much information to gather from Srimad Bhagavatam. Modern scientists, however, have no information of other planetary systems, and indeed are hardly conversant with the planet on which we are now living. I guess I will read one more time the translation of this last verse, and then we'll discuss. By the supreme will of Krishna, the mountain known as Lokaloka has been installed as the outer border of the three worlds, Burloka, Bhuvarloka, and Svarloka, to control the rays of the sun throughout the universe. All the luminaries from the sun up to Dhruvaloka distribute the rays throughout the three worlds, but only within the boundary formed by this mountain. Because it is extremely high, extending even higher than Dhruvaloka, it blocks the rays of the luminaries, which therefore can never extend beyond it. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namini Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschacha Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivas Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Thank you everybody for being with us today and discussing these exciting verses. I personally find them exciting just because of the place I came back from, and we were discussing this with the devotees there in Himalayas, talking about all these mountains, Meru and Sumeru, and how they manifest and why we cannot see sometimes what we read in Srimad Bhagavatam, and nonetheless it's there. So let me just begin slowly from the points that discussed in the last verse, and then we will touch on some other topics as well during our class. The things that described here maybe not the most clear for devotees who don't really study other parts of the Vedas. Srila Prabhupada has assured us that just by studying Bhagavad Gita alone, you can achieve perfection in bhakti, which is the goal of knowing all the other literatures and Vedas and parts of the Vedas that contain knowledge of astronomy, astrology, Ayurveda, logic, martial arts, meditation, so many things, Ashtanga Yoga, Kriya Yoga, which is, of course, containing Ashtanga Yoga, and many other paths. So all the jnana is there. And just because we haven't heard of it or studied it doesn't mean that it's not in detailed, extensively described somewhere in the Vedas, which are vast. So we're just given here some summaries here and there to have a general understanding of the universe and perception. And because Srimad Bhagavatam mostly focuses on pastimes of the Lord and the devotees, and establishes the supremacy of Bhakti Yoga, the path of Bhakti and devotional service, then we don't hear so much. And even Srila Prabhupada's purports, he'll give explanations here and there, but won't go too much into detail about the structure of the universe. So, but there are texts that describe a lot more how materially and physically those things manifest. In some of the scriptures of astrological scriptures that are called Brihaspati. I'm sorry, it just left me. Anyway, it's been written by Brihaspati, guru of the demigods. Brihat Parashara Shastra. It was also written by Parashara Muni, and Jaimini sages, Jaimini Shastra, So all of these are detailed description of Jyotisha, how the stars and planets are situated in this world. And there are actually descriptions how the grahas, or planets that we know even in Western astronomy, like Mars and Venus and Jupiter and Saturn and things like that, plus Rahu and Ketu that we know of from the Jyotish, from the Vedic version of it. They do capture the light that comes from higher worlds. And because these part of the world, the middle planets and lower planets, they sort of in darkness, the lights received from the planet of the sages, Swargaloka and Tapaloka, Maharloka, Janaloka, all of these planets that are also called constellations, the ones that we know as zodiac signs. There's actually stars where the sages reside and realize living beings that are almost liberated or sometimes liberated. The stars, the light emanating from higher worlds, even from spiritual world, is captured by this other grahas who directly affect people's lives and influence them. They all have their particular personalities that rule these planets and play that role in each universe. And then that light, graha literally means to capture light. And then that light is reflected in a certain skewed way, basically, and affecting living beings here. So that is the description given in some of the astrological texts about how our destiny and especially our desires in the mind is affected by the stars, by the planets, and how the pure light that's supposed to represent and carry the knowledge, the realized spiritual knowledge from spiritual realm, it's reflected and a little bit changed, perverted in the lower planetary systems. And so the living entities here, they get everything a little skewed, little reflections. And so then, depending on where all these planets are staying in the birth, during your birth, they're going to give you, either certain blessings or difficulties. So there are descriptions like that. That's why when I read verses like this, where let's say the mountain captures the light or limits the light of the universe, I think, all right, makes sense. There are certain boundaries and borders in the universe that distinguish the levels and, where the living beings reside and what level they're in and how much they get, how much knowledge and even the light they receive. So it seemed like a reasonable statement. Then what about this description of the mountains? When we were in Himalayas just a few days ago, I was bringing a group from Bhakti Yoga Center. Maybe some of you knew, maybe some didn't, but we had a pilgrimage to Rishikesh, to Mother Ganga in the Himalayas, the foothills of the Himalayas. It was a wonderful Kirtan festival there, but we also saw the places and the ancient temples and the caves of the sages. I'll tell you that in a minute, what happened there, such an important place on the universal level. And then we went to Vrindavan after that. So anyway, when we were in Himalayas, our guide, devotee who shows all these ancient places of pilgrimage to other devotees, he shared some things. And we were traveling up sometime on that serpentine road up in the mountains, higher and higher, to trying to get to Dev Prayag, where there is a confluence of Ganga, as Alakananda and why do I forget everything today? I'm sorry. Anyway, Bhagirathi and Alakananda, those are two names of Ganga that come together. So anyway, we're getting that. And every time you turn, you see a higher mountain. And then you think, okay, once I get to this valley, there will be some view. But as soon as you turn, there's a higher mountain. And then again, a higher mountain. And then it goes just forever. So our guide, this devotee was describing how just like this, when you physically see Himalayas getting higher and higher and higher, all the way to Badrinath, the origin of Ganga, Mother Ganga in the Gomukh and Badrinath in the material world. You further, if you have the right vision, if you're qualified, if you have higher consciousness, if you have more subtle senses and perception of more unmanifested objects and things in this world, then you'll be able to see Mount Meru, because that's where it starts and it goes higher and higher until you reach higher planetary systems. It doesn't stop just at the Mount Everest or whatever, at Kailash, or it goes much higher than we can perceive. So it's there, but only certain beings qualify to see that. Just like there are so many beings that we can't see either in this world. You know, bathing in the Ganga, there are many subtle living entities that don't have the physical body like we do. The Nagas, and that float in the Ganga. So many other ones that are described, in the kingdom of Varuna in the water. And in the same way, there are living beings that come from higher planets and that don't have the same gross physical bodies made of matter like we do. So sometimes we can't see them if we're not qualified, if we don't have the authorization to see them. Most of us were born in quite a bit of ignorance. And the majority of population doesn't come out of that ignorance covering. Therefore, why would they have access to something higher, to more subtle things, to subtle, more intense enjoyments that happen in the heavenly planets and in all these mountains where apsaras and different celestial beings live and enjoy and also glorify the Lord, of course. In the meantime, apart from the enjoyment there. So yes, these mountains are there. And again, as our guide was describing, many persons who we read about in Srimad Bhagavatam, including Pandavas, they went there. They went up to the Himalayas. So many sages went up there. And then they were able to physically travel up the places through those channels, like the Mount Meru and Sumeru, that go up higher beyond the earth. So I don't have any reason not to believe that. It's easier for me to accept and more reasonable to me to accept that my senses are very limited, and therefore, if there is something that I can't perceive, touch, smell, taste, or use for my senses, it doesn't mean it does not exist. It doesn't mean it's not there. This is not even the most mystical things to read, not even most inconceivable things to read that Prabhupada describes here and comments in Bhagavatam. There are more mystical things that we have faith on, like bhakti. In the material world, we might have some understanding of, feeling or serving or, experiencing some intense emotion towards somebody. And so, maybe that's easy to understand. Oftentimes it just happens on the physical level. But what about bhakti? What about pure love and devotion? How does that arise? How is it not the most mystical of all descriptions in the Vedas, the process of bhakti? What we know is that you can't just get it because you demand, or because you practice something mechanically, just because you mastered your schedule or your I don't know, your habits, and you are able to get up and pronounce some sound vibrations and a little meditation. It doesn't mean at all that you can get prema or pure love for God. It's a mystical process, and Krishna himself grants it, Radha and Krishna. And also it's described that it's given from another heart of the devotee. It's not just that you, again, obtain it with your own strength or your own effort. Certainly effort is important. It's mostly needed for us to change, to elevate our consciousness to higher modes of nature. But really, it's just such a mystical process, such a mystery of this world. Do you ever wonder why, like some people really become such amazing devotees and they just have so much love for God and they just dedicate their life and they're so sweet. And as soon as you associate with them, you can start almost tasting that sweetness of love of God. You feel supercharged to execute devotional service. You want to serve others in the same way. You have taste for chanting the Maha Mantra, even though yourself you've been struggling maybe for years or chanting inattentively. But sadhu sangha, lava matra, that moment with a pure devotee, can change you so much. Isn't that the most mystical description in the process? It's a lot more esoteric than mount made of gold and another mountain that separates the light in the world. So to me, that's most inconceivable, how being in this material world for millions and millions of lifetimes and have no chance or personal desire to love and serve Krishna, somehow in our low birth, in our unfavorable circumstances in Kali Yuga, in Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashtacha Deshatarana, in this Western world full of emptiness or nonsense, or any type part of the world, to be honest, at this point. We just pick up bhakti, and some of us succeed and really start to care and love Krishna by doing devotional service with heart, sincerely, with desire, with understanding that this is what we really want. How amazing, how incredible. So there's a mystical process of transferring bhakti from one heart of the devotee to another. That's why in the Nectar of Devotion, the first three most important rules and regulations for devotional service described by Rupa Goswami is to accept and serve and inquire from spiritual master, because he considered to have bhakti in his heart, and by pleasing that person, by inquiring, by serving sincerely, you'll have that mystical process, that transfer of bhakti into your heart. So I find this, again, as I described, far more incredible than even just descriptions in the fifth canto of Srimad Bhagavatam of different planets. And nonetheless, yes, there are many, many sages that went like that and went to higher worlds and even traveled throughout, back and forth, like Narada Muni. He has a blessing to have such sense perception, such body that can handle any world, any dimension, spiritual or material, higher or lower. He can go wherever he likes for his service, because he has this particular desire to serve Krishna in the form of a guru to many others, and enlighten them at the beginning of creation, at the end, and anywhere in between. So Narada Muni can do that. Pandavas also went like this to heavens and even to hell temporarily, for a short time, to have a sneak peek. And Arjuna traveled, and then sometime Krishna went on a chariot out of this world as well, for his guru. So many, many instances where we read how this travel, interplanetary travel, is possible. So there must be some medium. You have to have the right body, but most importantly, you have to have the right consciousness, because the physical body that we have is more a result of ignorance, again, much more gross material elements. And even in your own self, you can barely perceive your subtle body, although it's there and it's even more active and it's more potent and important, I would say, than your gross body. Most of the things happening with us internally as a soul consciousness is happening within the subtle body. But you can't see it, we can't touch it, we can't feel it. And, so many scientists and people trying to understand these concepts and study them from so many different dimensions, but because they're limited in their own beliefs and the theories that they put forth, and therefore can't break those theories at this point, because maybe they're just afraid to be ridiculed, or afraid to lose this never-ending battle between religious institutions and scientific. I mean, like, Abrahamic religions and their worldview, and then the scientific dogmas. Maybe they're just afraid to be ridiculed, so they can't just abandon the things that they established some 150 years ago about very gross, basic perception and understanding of existence on just the level of the elements and molecules. But they also trying to study, even though they are in denial sometimes of the soul and different dimension, they still trying to study those things in quantum physics and on very, very microscopic atomic levels, finally kind of like getting to the core of it and thinking, oh, there's just a sound vibration, or whatever it is in the core of the atom. They also trying to understand more uh, subtle levels of existence. And in the attempts to study psychology and attempts to understand reincarnation through empirical uh, experiments, it's also just their desire to tap into those more subtle energies. I don't know whether it will succeed or not. I think the scientific world is also advancing. And even though Srila Prabhupada likes to make fun of the scientists and their primitive views and, again, their denial position, still it's advancing. The material elements that they're using, they're perfecting the machines. And so it can become very close to mystic powers of the yogis. In fact, you all know this statements and descriptions when Srila Prabhupada in Bhagavad Gita, he would talk about different siddhis, mystic abilities of the yogis who practice Ashtanga Yoga, and how they can become lighter or smaller, penetrate any object, or they can fly. They can obtain anything they desire, get to any place, control other people's minds. If you think about it, scientists and modern civilization, advanced civilizations, they are quite good at this point. Too bad they're using it for wrong purposes sometimes and not making the world better, but they're there. So the science is also advancing. But nonetheless, I think Srila Prabhupada's, again, mocking scientists is valid because despite being so good at many things, and we cannot deny, we can't also be fanatical and say like, oh yeah, scientists are just demons always, and they have not done anything. They save many lives, and they even help many devotees to continue service and preaching with medicine. Obviously, those all things are quite obvious. I don't have to describe them in detail. They have many, many useful things. But unfortunately, it's like they're so right about many little things, but so wrong about one most important thing, the goal of life, the meaning of life. And that's why, as far as we're driven by scientific progress and more like materialistic progress at this point, because oftentimes science just serves the industrial, materialistic civilization, just to perfect the sense gratification machines and facilities so that we can have less interruption and more pleasure in a shorter time, more dopamine kicks in record time, and see how far we can destroy ourselves like that. Anyway, so they've done a lot, but unfortunately they're just so wrong about this one thing. And that one thing is what humanity really needs and wants in their hearts. What's the greatest good? We made a wrong turn sometime for whatever reason. Some people might say it was just a mistake. Some people will say no, it's how it's supposed to be. Kali Yuga has to progress. If everyone will become devotee here and so Krishna consciousness is elevated, then how will Kali spread? So in one way or other, so many things are orchestrated by higher powers as well. And therefore, the population will continue to degrade, will continue to have epidemics, will continue to have wipeouts of millions of people by disease or by their own minds and desperation, lack of meaning, um, the intense suffering that just many people want to put to an end. And of course, wars. So many things will continue in the next years and years to come because it's just how the cycle of this creation is. So when we read these descriptions, I think it's wise to think, what should we do with this information, with this knowledge, and how can we how can we focus on the most important thing of it? taken into account intricate creation. And here in this verse, it says, in this last verse, it said, by the supreme will of Krishna, the mountain known as Lokaloka has been installed on the border of the three worlds. So, there's also this difficult creation to overcome, the Maya, Durga Deva's realm. It's very hard to overcome because the Lord designed it so. Everything good in life has to has to be earned. If you want long-lasting, eternal bliss, happiness, never-ending, loving exchange with the Lord, after being in the material world for millions and millions of years, just prepare for a little bit of austerity. Maybe externally, maybe burning that karma through your body and diseases and situations in your life, or maybe burning it with intense desire and longing for Krishna by chanting attentively, by structuring your life around chanting japa, around performing kirtan, around associating with devotees. Oftentimes we forget, well, here's our life and the day goes by and I just put my japa around it here and there. But actually we should put our things around japa, around chanting, around reading and hearing. And then the focus and the priorities in life will change. And that is an austerity. It's also entails giving up certain other pleasures and comforts of life and tastes. I think most people, when they step on the path of bhakti, they're scared to lose their part of their material personality, losing taste for bad association and their habits and partying and taking drugs and eating meat. It's very scary to suddenly become a sadhu, become a saintly person, as if it happens so fast and easy. So naive we are in the beginning, thinking like, oh, if I just, step it for a month, I will never be the same again, right? Little do we know that all those things can come back very easily if you don't constantly endeavor to stay in the mode of goodness. But anyway, yes, sometimes we're afraid and think like, oh, yeah, if I give up a little bit, I'll just be dead. Part of me will die and it'll be so painful, just like cutting the arm or whatever, fingers off. Ouch, I'm so attached to my sinful activities and destructive habits. But if we can handle it and have, yes, you can earn, I think, with your sincere desire and effort, constant effort, we can earn the entrance into not just the subtle realms like that we read about, the heavenly mountains with incredible trees and fragrant flowers and the rivers of juice and nectar and just so many facilities where everything you want can be very easily manifested for your material enjoyments and pleasures. Not even that. I mean, this, of course, you can do even by, doing just some charity and altruistic philanthropic activities and sacrifices and yagyas and for some maybe some yoga practices and purifications. All of this can be attained just by pious life. But we don't want to just become pious by chanting Hare Krishna. And unfortunately, if we don't have, now I'm moving a little bit to the other direction now in the class as we discuss some of the technical things and astronomical, astrological, geographical locations and their possible existence. Let's talk about bhakti a little bit more. The power of the holy name is there, and we can certainly chant, but if we don't really put sincere effort to love Krishna and to serve Krishna, and we just taken it for granted that I just do whatever, and then I have a little bit of kirtan, you will certainly gain certain results, but maybe it can stop at just having a lot of pious credit and having a nice birth next life because you were chanting Krishna's names. Bhakti is a conscious process, and we can't just float around mechanically chanting or mechanically going through the actions with our body, just thinking that only just because my body is here, but my mind is dwelling somewhere else, thinking of how I can enjoy later, or dwelling in some very negative space, criticizing the devotees, criticizing Vaishnavas, criticizing some, your guru or, your god brothers and god sisters, but simply going through the motions of devotional service. How much is it going to give you? I don't know. Something, definitely something. It's better than just fully being Maya. But if our consciousness is not present, if we don't understand why we're doing these things, eventually what will happen is through offenses, through inattentiveness, through a wrong attitude, I would say, we're going to feel like we made a decision to stop practicing. There's so many devotees who leave Krishna consciousness, who leave bhakti, who leave their gurus, who abandon their vows, because on some level they think, oh no, it's because of this. I made the decision. It's my own choice to stop practicing. It's my own choice to stop chanting the rounds. It's my own choice to go and just become normal like everybody else. But the fact is, we have very little control over life. Even when things like this happen, it's actually because the offenses were created. Krishna and Srimati Radharani and Bhakti Devi, they move you. Because you think, all right, if this guy, if this girl continues with such rate of offenses, with such rate of wrong mentality, where are they going to get themselves through this devotional service? They might create some serious karma, by being in the wrong place, in the wrong state of mind. So sometimes Krishna just give us a little break because we're not qualified to associate with devotees. On the other hand, devotees are very merciful, and then they just reach out anyway, despite having the risk of being hurt or blasphemed or offended or criticized. Devotees are very merciful, and they understand the urgency for each soul to execute, engage, and practice sadhana and devotional service. That they just do it anyway. And even if people who are offended, who criticized, they still would reach out and try not to burn the bridges. Try to get you to chant a little bit, or if you can't chant, okay, just come to the festival, or just take some prasadam. Let's hang out. Let's have some prasadam. And then they pray in their hearts to please, 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 Krishna, turn your face back to this devotee. Krishna never turns his face back. It's us who just stay like this and ignore Krishna's many attempts to retrieve us back to our home. But devotees, they really try to help and speed up the process so we don't stay here for another cycle of Satya, Treta, Dvapara, and Kali Yuga until Lord Chaitanya comes again after 27 yugas. Wow, what a rare gift we've got, right? So yes, chanting in our process should be very conscious endeavor. Whatever nurtures your bhakti, whatever association or inspiration, whatever hearing and chanting with others you can get, so you can feel enough strength, enough load to go, enough fuel to go through the day and have your japa chanted nicely. And if you can throughout the day remember Krishna one way or other, the more the better, Train the mind to absorb and really spontaneously flow like river goes to the sea, like Ganga. And let that grace be in our heart and our mind. Daily, really. It's never a safe space until you are on a fully pure, spontaneous platform of devotional service where there's no need to put any endeavor. It's just your life now. You're automatically hearing and chanting all day. There's nothing else to do. There's nothing else you want. There's nothing else left. Most of the time, the Lord will make arrangements for our life to be like that you really don't have much else to do. And that's how many sadhus leave as well. That's how many I mean sincere preachers also live. They just make arrangements in their life that there's nothing else to do but Krishna. They're very careful with their time. That was one of my main realizations as well, coming from the holy place, is that In Vrindavan, for example, you just stay so busy hearing and chanting and going to hear more about Krishna, to see. All your senses are so busy all the time. There's barely any time to sleep, what to speak of going on your phone and like sitting online and checking some things and just trying to entertain yourself because you feel bored. There's no time like this. At least when you go for a little while to visit and get the most to recharge. It's very, very busy. It's tight schedule. So I really felt so happy that my senses can be so busy and almost tired with Krishna consciousness. It's just so much of Krishna there everywhere in every corner that all you can do is just quickly have a sleep for a few hours and go back to Krishna. And obviously some people who just starting, they can get a serious overdose of Krishna consciousness like that. And sometimes they think, whoa, 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 wait a moment. I just need a break. I just need to go somewhere by myself, not with devotees, not talk about Krishna anymore, not chant Hare Krishna. Can't do this anymore. I just need a little bit of Maya, just almost like the smokers, people who smoke so much. They actually need it because their lungs are used to certain deprived level of oxygen. So they feel bad when they get full oxygen. That's why people who are heavy smokers, they can go and hike, they start to suffocate because there's so much oxygen in the lungs that they just can't handle it. They have to get back to nicotine and CO2, to get their normal levels. So in the same way, it's like this sometimes in Vrindavan, you need a little break. But it's really wonderful to be so busy with Krishna Katha, with hearing, chanting, and action, of course, action. Prema, pure love, always means action, always service. We can't just theoretically exercise pure love of God. It's always meaning action, devotion, service. And I guess that's the challenge. That's the challenge wherever we are, at home and at work, how to keep it up, how to just always create activities that remind you of Krishna. I'm not an expert at that, but I'm trying. I'm trying my best now to keep up the momentum, to stay busy, to not just linger on something that is distracting or just, because those habits can crawl back to you once you in your habitual environment. So make your home a Vrindavan so that nothing distracts you from Krishna, and every interaction with your home, your family, your loved ones, your friends is somehow or other reminds you of the Lord. The way you treat them, that you eat prasadam together, that you can chant and hear, that you can read something, that you can worry about serving Krishna in the best capacity of yours. Whatever it is, it can be stressful. Maybe it should be stressful again, so that we're really absorbed in it sometimes. It can be ecstatic. It can be in a very much mode of goodness, whatever your inclinations are. Just try to use them to always think of Krishna and never forget. All the other rules and regulations are simply supplemental to these two main ones. Always think of Krishna and never forget Krishna. And if you manage to do this for, what do you think, Taraka Prabhu? 40 years? 45? Maybe 50? Maybe more? Let's see how long we all can live in these bodies. If you can manage to do it for a few years, wow, what a bright future awaits. And it's not necessarily that you have to go to the Mount Sumeru or higher to Svargaloka or any other loka, even to Galoka, because it's the matter of consciousness. Lord Chaitanya's mood in the Shikshashtaka prayers, the only literature he left after himself, which should tell us that it's very, very important and has the conclusion of Prema Bhakti. He said that I'm only concerned with serving you, Krishna. You might embrace me or you might neglect me. All I'm interested in is just continue to serve you, to be in your service. And therefore, this is the ultimate mood. Devotees are not interested in liberation. They're not interested in certain geographical locations, neither in this world or the next world, wherever you go. We should just only be concerned in how our consciousness is absorbed in worship in the Lord. At first as a practice, as sadhana bhakti, and gradually more like Raganuga Bhakti, spontaneous devotion to the Lord, simply because it became your second nature, simply because it's your life now, and you really have nothing else to do but appreciate and worship the Lord by your actions, by your thoughts, with your body, your mind, with your tongue, with your senses, in so many other ways. It can go on all day. It can go on in a dream. You can dream of Krishna. It can become such a life. What a success of human life. What a success for you and for all around you. Please remember, if you're sometimes struggling through your path of bhakti, if you sometimes feel overwhelmed or down and just low, remember that it's not just you that you're doing the favor. Just like Lord Nrsimhadev said to Prahlad Maharaj, you will liberate 21 generations. Here 10, there 10, and yours, your family, direct family, all of them will have opportunity to join the Lord as well and to engage in devotional service. That is the indication of liberation, that they become devotees, that they come in contact with the Lord. So when you practice, when you when you sincerely chant Krishna's names and do your service at the temple or at home, and it's austere sometimes and tough on the body or the mind, please remember how much favor you're doing to a significant population of this world. In one way or other, we all related, you know. There's only few Prajapati's who gave life and bodies to all of us. So all of us related in some way, and we're really just liberating ourselves, each other, by practicing sincerely. So it's in your interest and the interest of your family and your land and in this world that you become a pure devotee. And on that note, I'd like to finish and wish all of you pure devotion to Radha and Krishna through activities, daily activities of bhakti. And hopefully we can all help each other, support each other on that path, and carefully guard against offenses, pick each other up if somebody falls down temporarily and they're struggling to pick themselves up just because they're tired, they're hurt, you know, figuratively or literally. We can also help each other and be merciful and remember how important it is what we're trying to do with our lives this time. And not miss that rare opportunity. I take it back to Goloka. Thank you, dear own. Hare Krishna. We don't really have any time for discussion, but if you want to say a little something in the next 2 minutes, please do. And I appreciate you being with me today and giving your time to hear and chant together. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Samaveta Bhaktavrinda ki jai. People. Again, if anybody wants to say a little something, otherwise, you're free to go.
Hare Krishna, good morning, Anandini Lavita, Devi Dasi. It's Leela Kishore, Devi Dasi. I just want to say that I am spiritually fed. I am blessed. What a beautiful class and so much encouragement. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Mataji. You're always very kind, and I feel so inspired to do more. Just Krishna Katha when I hear people like you. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna. Dark Prabhu said, oh, we missed text 34? Then no problem. Let's just read it now because it was part of our verses. My Tatha Parashta Lakaloka Namachalo Lakalokayor Antarali Parita Upakshitpa. And Tata, from that ocean of sweet drinking water, Parastat, beyond, Lokalokanama, named Lokaloka, Achala, a mountain, Loka Alokaya, Antarale, between the countries full of sunlight and those without sunlight, Paritaha, all around, Upakshipta, exist. In the translation of this verse that we almost missed, but didn't, thereafter, beyond the ocean of sweet water and fully surrounding it is a mountain named Lokaloka, which divides the countries that are full of sunlight from those not lit by the sun. All right. Perfect timing. Now we completed our Bhagavatam reading verses for today. Again, I wish you all a wonderful day full of Krishna consciousness, inside and outside. And tune in next time to find out what happens to Mount Meru and Sumeru. Hare Krishna.